I'm here to be not a coach right now. I'm just here to be 100% human and talk about a time where I didn't feel like a coach and felt 100% human. So this was right in the pandemic 2020. I actually had high blood pressure and I was training clients daily. I was exercising, probably not daily, but I was exercising and doing what I could do. I was running a business and I was in a relationship and I was walking around feeling unhealthy, and it's interesting because I have a lot of clients who that's their focus. They want to get their high blood pressure down. And when I share with them that I actually had high blood pressure, a lot of them can't believe it. I have one client who calls me Super G, and it's kind of like this nod to the fact that, I'm superhuman, but truthfully, I've been through a lot of the same things that everyone goes through. And that's part of why I'm passionate about it and part of why I want to help people with it. And I have experience. Like I was able to reverse that high blood pressure by doing a few things I'll tell you about. But, I mean, I feel like it's my responsibility to be 100% healthy for my clients, for the people I lead, for my community, and just for myself. So it really, it struck me differently when I realized that I wasn't. My doctor, for a routine check-in, my doctor pulled me aside and said, "Hey, your numbers are a little bit high." And I was like, "Oh, it's probably white coat syndrome." I don't know if you've never heard of white coat syndrome. That's how it describes a phenomenon that happens when you walk into your doctor's office, and just because you're visiting a doctor, you might have been stressed about it for weeks before, the day before, the night before, not slept well, ate poorly before, walk into that doctor's office stressed, and it may not necessarily give you the most accurate reading as far as what your actual blood pressure is on a day to day and when you first wake up. So anyway, I was like, oh, it must be white coat syndrome. I'll come back in a week. Came back or whatever a few days later and it was still elevated. And he's like, okay, so unless you want to get on medicine, I need you to record your blood pressure every day. And I did. I bought the machine from CVS. I started to take a journal and recorded it every day. And it was high every day. It wasn't a fluke. And I truthfully, I avoided it. Like I might have set a doctor's appointment. I might actually, here's the truth. I didn't record my blood pressure every day. I might have done it twice out of the week and it was high. And then the next week, maybe once or twice, but I was scared to do it every time. I avoided it. And I finally saw my doctor about a month later and he asked if I was reporting the blood pressure notes, and I absolutely wasn't. And honestly, I just fumbled the whole ball there. I was in shock. But I did know I needed to do something about it. So one thing I did probably three things that did most of the work. I didn't add any salt to any of my foods, none. Uh, I wasn't big on it before, but I also had to be mindful of other places where salt is, right? Like in certain cheeses or crackers or chips. So I'm a big chipaholic person. So no chips, no anything that had high salt. Like be cognizant of it. Read the nutrition labels, especially your seasonings and hot sauces. I was using seasonings and hot sauces. They're very high in sodium, some of them, and it was destroying my health. I think that was one part of it. The other part was on a more psychological level. I had to look at my environment. Um, you know, just certain relationships, that you may have, or just environments that you have to be in, or it could be your commute. What is it? I have to take real inventory of what in my day to day life is serving me and what isn't. What am I fighting against? What's creating resistance and friction in my daily life? Because those are the things that are contributing to me not being able to rest properly or manage my stress properly, or just have a lower, like high blood pressure sometimes isn't just about the physical factors, it's not about salt. Sometimes it's about who's around you, what are you doing? Is it healthy? Are you creating a healthy environment so you can rest and your body can bring itself back to equilibrium? So the psychological factors, I don't want that to get lost. I feel like that gets lost a lot of times when we talk about high blood pressure, but that 100% can contribute to it. And I believe in my case, because I wasn't eating much sodium before then, I believe in my case that was one of the biggest factors. And thirdly, exercise, prioritizing myself. I had to put myself first. It's funny when you have a bunch of problems and, you can have a bunch of problems. When you have a health problem, it becomes the number one problem. So that's what happened. Like, I mean, I had to recommit to a physical exercise training regimen. I had to get some actual structure. I had to write down the workouts that I am going to do and plan them out. And which day of the week I'm responsible and keeping myself accountable for doing them. So that became a focal point. And nutrition wise, just making choices that supported my routine. Had to walk more. I started taking the stairs. I think for an entire summer after I found that out, I took the stairs, living on the third floor of my apartment, took the stairs. And so, yeah, so from physical things, I also just recounting some things from that time, back to focusing on myself, really thinking about how I can grow personally, my personal growth. Between 2020 and 2023, that was the peak me being able to just focus on personal growth, not only ingesting and and consuming materials, books, courses, workshops, webinars. I had a commitment. I committed to 5 personal growth areas, but also thinking about um, like journaling. I started to write down things. I also noticed that when I had before leading up to that high blood pressure and maybe some time after, I wasn't sharing enough with other people, right? So once I started to share the struggles and the frustrations and the challenges that I had going on in my day-to-day life, when I started to share that with other people, my family members, I also started counseling during this time. Those are the things I think really move the needle because, of course, they moved the needle in my life a lot more to get me closer to living a happier life, being more satisfied on a day-to-day basis, So that's one thing is, check with yourself. Are you sharing enough about your life and your day-to-day struggle with other people? Letting some people in, that's probably another deeper layer of that, right? Are you comfortable enough to open up and let other people in, or do you feel like you need to compartmentalize everything? And, if it's between you and this other person, you're not bringing other people in because you don't want to, be messy or let people mind your business. Share that story, share what you're going through, that experience, bring people in because without that, I probably would still have high blood pressure. I probably would still be unhappy on a day to day and nothing would have changed if I didn't actually like go seek out people to help me with these issues or just talk to them. Doesn't always have to be something that you're getting in exchange. So definitely come up with some small things, micro movements. Okay, I'm not gonna put salt on my food or heavy seasoning with salt. I'm gonna take focus on more walking. Um, Identity anchoring. Who am I and who do I want around me? That's important. Think about who you are and your environment. And then thirdly, get some support. Invite some other people in, talk to some other people that are going to help you, professionals or family members or friends, but speak about like share your mental management load. Um, those things help me, reduce my blood pressure. So I just want to be transparent about that. You have a coach who has been through some stuff and still fighting it because we ain't going back there. So subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to hear more, stories about my life or, I want to hear what you guys want to hear from me and just DM or comment a line if this aligns with you and you want to align with your best self and your best health goals.